So I think you need to remove these things first. Oh man, they're stuck. You gotta use two hands. Oh. Wow, it's pretty tight in there. Maybe I better use some tools. Okay, use some of that protective stuff. Tighten this thing. There you go. It takes a little twist just to loosen it. Oh, maybe a little more. Just a little bit. There you go. There you go. Comes right off now. I just didn't want to scratch this plastic piece. Let's see here. Time to remove these two 8mm sockets, or 8mm nuts that's securing the tail light to the back. You don't want to apply a lot of torque when you retighten this because it's probably attaching to plastic. So you apply very little torque when you tighten this back in. Comes right off like so. And I unplugged the little connector. You just press this little button right here and then just wiggle it out. Now it's time to remove the tail light here. Gosh. Good job, buddy. There you go. So you got to be careful with it that you don't break these little tabs. But here it is. Here's the tail light. And next step is to remove this bolt. 10mm socket. Using my bicycle multi-tool. Thanks, bud. And a little lamp here. So I just pop it out. Here's one right here. Okay, there's a T25 Torx right here. Hey. And over here too. I guess the newer models that have the removable undercover here only comes with 6 bolts. So now comes the fun part. Usually it's good to have a partner when you do this, but I'm going to try to do it myself. Because, so I guess you just got to peel this off and peel the other side off. It's held on by these little plastic clips here, so you got to lift up a little bit when you peel off. When I'm done, yeah, something like this. Here goes nothing. Peel this back. There you go. Out. Ooh, what is that? Oh, here's the nut insert that goes in here. I better make sure that I put it back later. But this thing came off. I'm gonna put it right here. Let me take this, continue to move this thing out. There you go. Yikes, there you go. It's off. It's resting right there. So I'm gonna do the same on this side. Start off right here. Hopefully that nut doesn't come off. Yikes. That's it. Now there's a connector right here. Let me rest this maybe on my foot or something while I remove this connector. There you go. The bumper should come off now. And there you go. Crap, looks Look at all that stuff. This car has under 300 miles on it. Look at all that crap that came off of it. So I'm gonna rest this bumper somewhere. Maybe right here. I'll just let it sit. Move these lamps out of the way. I'm just gonna let it sit on my little thing here, right here. And that'll work. Okay. Next step is to use a 10mm socket and remove 5 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could have used your help a minute ago. Look, I removed that bumper.
Why?
Because I need access to
More.
to this part of the car. Remove the 5 bolts that are up here, and I'll use a 50mm socket to remove 6 nuts that are in here. 3 on this side, 3 on the other side. So after removing the beam, there's 8 nuts here. Ooh, this one might be hard to reach. But there's 8 nuts that you just have to remove off. Probably gonna take a bit of torque to remove. Oh, no, it comes off pretty easily. Unlike the other ones. Mm-hmm.
They're tighter. Dad, if you need to, if I...
Hold on, unscrew this, please.
Oh, I didn't get that one.
Ooh, comes right off. I saw some of the other installations where they applied some sort of paste here. So in this case, it just came right off.
I'm done.
Good job, bud.
Wow.
Let me find the rubber washers. Here it is. And these are the pieces that I cut out. Okay, so I removed the little cover plate. And now I'll use these pieces that I cut out earlier. And I just put them here. Actually, no. I'll put the washers in first. Okay. 8 rubber washers. Put them in. These rubber washers are designed to prevent the 2 different metals making contact. You have steel plate going here, and this is aluminum. And when you add a little bit of moisture and maybe a little salt from the road, it could actually corrode this material right here, the aluminum material, and it's really bad. So what I like to do is I'll cut out a piece of plastic and I just put it right in between, like so.
And to now.
So, hi Faye.
What's going on?
I'm installing a tow hitch on my car.
I get to
Hang
see.
on.
After you work so hard to do this now, to make it
Okay.
better.
So now I have this plastic piece in between, just extra isolation. Just a little bit. After you have this mounted, install the nuts. Install 4 nuts, 2 on the inside of each, and torque it down to 45 foot-pounds. So this comes with some bolts. So this goes right in here, and whoa. Okay, that's That's one side. The other side. Now stick in the 2 nylock nuts. Sorry, there's not a lot of clearance here, so in the future it's better to pre-install the locking mechanism onto the hitch first before you mount it on. But the instructions didn't say that, so now see how tight the clearances are? It's really hard to get a wrench in there. So before mounting the bracket here to the beam, you gotta make sure this little tab is on top. So let's do that. So you put the nut, then the steel washer, and then you put the plastic washer in between to separate the two different materials, aluminum and steel. And then make sure the tab's on top, and you just run it through these holes like so. There you go. And then you put these nuts in on the other side. Okay, so I loosely installed the brackets. Make sure the tab is on top, and then spread it out a little bit and mount this in like so. This side and the other side. Oops, right there. So see that? It's pretty tight in there. But if you lift it up a little bit, it'll go right in. I just tighten it by hand. And then one more up here. So after tightening these 4 bolts together, what you want to do is you want to tighten these 6 bolts that are in here. Now this is reinstalled. Now it's time to put this piece back in. I don't know what you would call this piece. It goes in here first. This helps mount it in place. And the other piece, the clip right there. Once that's in, you can mount the remaining bolts. What I do notice is it has a little 3-pin connector here. I think this is for the tow hitch wiring. Newer Model 3s probably have this. Older ones might not have this. So this particular model is probably designed for a tow hitch, obviously, because it has a slot here already cut out for the tow hitch, because this is a newer model. So here's the latching mechanism. It's a little protective cover here. Underneath are the keys, and this is the cover for the key, I think. Here's the key. You just stick it in. Okay, so let's test this thing out. I guess you just stick this receiver in. Ooh, and it makes a click sound, a loud click sound. And technically you're done. Now, to remove it, you just twist it and it comes right off. Stick it back in. You're done. Now comes the hard part, which is putting that bumper back on. It's always good to have some help when handling something this large, but it's not so bad. Whoa. Okay, let's put this connector piece back in. Okay, it clicked, which is a good sign. Okay, when putting the rear bumper back, first thing I did was I put a little support right here to go underneath, and I load the rear bumper in, and what I did was I loosely installed the 10mm bolts right here to just give it some support. So right now it's just kind of hanging out here, and the only thing holding it up is these 2 10mm bolts. So the reason why I'm doing that is I got to get underneath and I gotta tuck in the rear body panel underneath some other panel in order to get the bolts in. If you don't do that, it's really hard to get that underbody tucked in correctly. First thing you want to do is put these clips in. Don't forget these clips, or you won't be able to mount the siding correctly. You know what? Probably easy to remove this one. Gives you a little more room. So no, before the tail lights, you want to reinstall these bolts underneath the car. I think they use a 10mm socket. So when reinstalling the bolts in the undercarriage, the thing you got to watch out for is you got to get this undercover tucked into this cover here. You gotta, so in order to do that, what I had to do is I had to kind of peel this back and just tuck it in order to get it tucked in properly. You won't be able to put in these two bolts unless you tuck this in, and it was kind of a pain, but you're able to flex this cover enough to tuck this in, and it's not so bad. And then just secure the two middle screws when you're done with that. That was the hardest part. Okay, after putting the bottom pieces back together, now it's time to reinstall the tail lamps. So I guess what you gotta do is this connector going here? Yeah. So run the connector cable through the little hole if it slid out, and just plug it back in like so. You should hear a little click, and then just find the two holes here, and you should be able to just press it right in like so. That's it. Screw these things back on. Just hand tighten. Use two hands. Tighten it snug. And then you simply put the these two bolts back in. This uses a 8mm socket. So I think you just stick it in like so. Open this up with the socket like this, and just screw it in by hand. Do not drop anything in there. Be very careful right here. You just hand tighten, put the other side in like so, and screw that sucker back in there, and that's about it. And then just lightly tighten this. Just light, very light. Don't need a lot of force here. Oops. There you go, that's it. I'll tuck everything back in, like so. Okay, here's the hitch installed.